In the last tutorial, we learned how to print out text to the terminal. Now, text is what we call a string in programming. It's a string data type. Now, there are other types of data other than string. For example, we have integers, doubles, characters, and pointers. Now, we're not going to get into all of those right now, but we'll go over the basics of them, except for pointers, which we're going to save for a more advanced lesson. Okay, so the first thing we have is integer. What is an integer? An integer is a number that has no decimal point, and it can be positive or negative. Where's my mouse? There we go. So these are all examples of integers. We have 11, 25, 1994, -10. Those are all valid integers. Next we have doubles, which are decimal numbers. Basically like integers, but they have a decimal place and something after it. For example, we have 3.14, that's a decimal number, or -5.3. Those are all decimal numbers, which are called doubles. Next we have the character data type, and this is for a single character. Now, for the string, like hello world, we use double quotation marks. That's a string. Now, a character uses single quotation marks, and you can only have one thing inside of this, one character. For example, the letter S or the letter Z. Any character, 0, 1, 2, 3, or letters, anything inside of that is a character. So we have characters, we have doubles, and we have integers. And like I said, we have pointers, but we'll be talking about that much, much later. Alright, so you know the basic data types, but you need to know how to print them out because it's different for each one. Very slightly different. For strings, we did printf, and then we put the string here. And that worked. This is the last program we had in our last tutorial. But let's say we want to print an integer. Well, we know integers don't go in quotation marks. They just look like this, 10. But this isn't going to work because printf, which is what we call a function, needs to know what type of data we are going to be printing out. Now, it normally defaults to printing out a string, but if we don't give it a string, we have to tell it what kind of data we're printing out. In this case, an integer. So we have to tell it that we're printing out an integer, and we give it this piece of information. This is a string. The first piece of information that you give this printf function is always a string. And in this case, we give it %i. %i means that we're printing out an integer. Now, we always use the percent when we're telling it what kind of data we're printing out. And then the next character is the type of data that we're printing out. So we're printing out an integer, 10. So let's compile this program and run it and see if it works. Alright, gcc dt.c. I named it dt, data type.c. You can name yours whatever you want, it doesn't matter. And hit enter. Okay, no errors. And now, as you know, it's in a file called a.exe. So we hit A and type enter, and it prints out 10. We just printed out the number 10. Now, what if we want to print out a decimal number? Well, let's print out 3.14. But this is for an integer. This won't work because this is a decimal number, a double, and this is for an integer. So there is, instead of I for integers, there is another letter for doubles. Now you might think, well, it's got to be D. And in a way, you're kind of right. But for our purposes, we're going to do F, %F. This is the standard way to print out double numbers, which are often called floating point numbers, which is why we use %F. Now, there is a difference between doubles and floating point numbers, but it's not important right now. So let's go back to the terminal, and we're going to recompile this using the up arrow keys that we learned about last time. Hit enter to compile, and A to run the program. And it prints out 3.140000. Now, That's not a huge problem. It always prints out to a certain precision, a certain number of decimal places, and in this case they're all zeros. You can change that, but we're not going to go into that amount of detail yet. Okay, so there's only one more kind. That's for a single character. And let's print out Z, capital Z. And of course, this isn't a floating point number. It's not a double anymore. So a character, you want to guess what letter this is? If you guessed C, you got it right. %C. This will print out a single character. Now we're going to recompile this, and we're going to run it again. And it prints out Z. Okay, so those are the basic data types in C and how to print them out. You have single characters, for which you use %C. You have strings. Oh, I forgot to say that. If you want to print out a string this way, you use %S. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but usually you do. So this prints out hello world, just like it printed out hello world last time. And just to show you that it does indeed work, we're going to recompile again and run it again, and we have hello world. So %C is for single characters, %S is for strings, %I is for integers, and %F is for doubles or floating point numbers. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you again in the next tutorial.